icy roads and flights from Florida. I would like to introduce you to Brian Alwin, Good Samaritan Award for 2018. He has come furthest from Minnesota. He is my colleague, esteemed colleague from Minnesota. That has the largest territory. He doesn't have anybody drive his territory. Everybody has to fly. And so with that, this is the award you get. Norwalk water.
I brought my own water. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Can you hear me all right? No. Okay, good. I'll do it without a mic. So, 12 years ago, a married couple approached SCORE with the idea to start a small business. They both had established careers. I'm sorry.
Use the mic.
Oh, use the mic. They both had established careers, but they wanted to do something on their own. They wanted to start their own business, have something with their name on it. And this couple would later say of their SCORE mentor, he was enthusiastic, supportive, warm, and businesslike. He was neither demeaning, condescending, or negative. And he gave them concrete advice on how to start a business. Now, as SCORE mentors, doesn't it warm your hearts when you hear a story like that? Yeah, I see that. Good. So I'm Brian Alwin. I live in Rochester, Minnesota. Rochester is known for a couple of things. Sure. We have the world's largest water tower. The world's largest ear of corn, a 50,000 gallon water tower. It's been there since 1934. It is the Midwest after all. But more importantly, we're the home of the Mayo Clinic, where some 35,000 medical professionals treat people from all around the world each year. Mark, thank you for that introduction. I am the Regional Vice President for Northwest, and that's 10 states, 44 chapters, and 1,300 volunteers. I've been with SCORE for 8 years. I've had the pleasure of serving as chapter chair, assistant district director, and now since October, regional vice president. Now, as I introduce myself to my districts and chapters in the region, I have a platform, and this platform is going to be very familiar to you because it's what we've been talking about the last 3 days. Number one, be a good mentor to our clients. Number two, serve one another in the organization. And number three, take enjoyment from the time that you spend in SCORE. Now, as I said, we've been talking about those for the last 3 days. So what does it mean to be a good mentor to our clients? Anyone? Listen. Okay, good. So setting aside those biases that we've been learning about, right? Being flexible. And knowing that we need to meet our clients wherever they're at. And that's both physically and geographically, but also in terms of where they're at, in terms of running their own business. Our clients often come to us with one of three requests. Answer my question, teach me, or mentor me. So answer my question. Very common, isn't it? Right. How do I register a business in the state of Connecticut? What is the best entity type for my business? Teach me. How do I read a profit and loss statement? Teach me how to hire my first employee, because I'm growing and I need to learn that. I need to know that. Now, the last one, mentor me, is, I think, everybody's favorite, isn't it? It's walk beside me on this long journey. And it certainly includes those first two, does it not? It includes answering a lot of questions and doing some teaching along the way. So, serving one another within the organization. Has anyone heard the term servant leadership? Okay, a few people have nodded your head and said yes. For those that aren't familiar with the term, servant leadership means simply this. It means the leader of the organization is there and in place to serve the members of the organization and not the other way around. It's there, that person is there to set an example for others to follow. And do such things practically as help organize a workshop or help set up co-mentoring and keep that going within the organization. It also is important as a leader, they set the tone and make the chapter attractive. Because isn't that what we want to do? We want to be attractive to others and bring them in. We don't want to drag them off the street. We want them to come in willingly. We want them to be there. And finally, and sometimes most importantly, take enjoyment from the time that you spend in SCORE. Think about this. Are the business meetings we have in our chapters and districts, are they strictly business? Or do we happen to mix business and pleasure? I hope you're doing the latter. I trust that you are. And I've heard some discussions over the last couple of days about that. I think that's important. Because think about this. Why would somebody, after working 30 or 40 years in industry, who had to sit through countless meetings, be attracted to an organization where all they do is talk business? I wouldn't be. And I'm sure you wouldn't be either. So if I could circle back to the beginning of the story, that couple did go on to start a business. They actually went on and started several. The first business they started was a moving company that serves only older adults. And 12 years ago, when they organized that company, there were only about 150 such companies existing in the United States. Now it's about 10 times that number. The advice that the SCORE counselor gave them not only helped them launch that first business, but several others as well. A cleaning business and a self-storage facility. And one half of that couple is standing before you today, that's me. And my wife Kimberly is in the back of the room there, and I hope you've had a chance to meet her. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this the last couple of days. Okay, any Monty Python fans? All right. So you know what this is. Let's see. Mark asked me to talk about my experience with CORE. And I know Steve talked about this a couple of days ago. What I'm going to give you is what I call a volunteer perspective. And I'm giving that to you because I've been involved in this for about 3, almost 4 years. So what I'm going to tell you is, briefly, I'll tell you where we've been with this project, this core replacement project, where we're at today, and then where we hope to go ahead in time.
Can you explain why you have the expertise?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and So back in 2015, you mean my background?
No, in this project.
Oh, sure. Yes. So in 2015, they formed what was called the Technology Task Force. And Michael was on it. And that Technology Task Force was made up of volunteers like myself. There were 4 volunteers that did a lot of the deep diving and a lot of the work, but we also had SCORE staff, which Michael was a member of that. But we also engaged over 100 volunteers to get their opinion. And I suspect some of the people in this room were involved in that. So I see some heads nodding. Good. I certainly hope they hit this region.
Ask them to raise their hands.
Oh, sure. Raise your hand if you. 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that. 700 volunteer hours, almost 400 pages of ideas were generated from that Technology Task Force. And the reason we wanted to do this is, of course, we wanted to learn what the field wants in a future replacement for CORE, but it also helps us develop a specification and a roadmap for planning this replacement. And it really helps us paint a picture of what your expectations are for any future core replacement. One of the most important things that we did is prioritize what we call non-functional requirements. Okay? In other words, we're not talking about bits and bytes here. We're talking about what is it that we want this to do. Like, we want it to be easy to use, don't we? And I'm trying to instill one word, and I hope it catches on, but I want people to be delighted when they use this future application and not groan and complain. I want them to be delighted, both the volunteers and the clients. Of course, it has to be, we have to be able to use it on our mobile devices because, overwhelming majority of people will be using it that way. And it has to be community focused, meaning your experience as a volunteer using this system, hoping that it's an excellent one, will be shared by others that are using it too, as I mentioned, clients and partners. So we closed out of that technology task force in May of 2016. That was the end of that project. We had all of the data gathered, and now we had a good understanding of what any future core replacement will look like. So if I fast forward to 2017, mid-year last year, we submitted requests for information, RFIs, to some 10 vendors, software vendors. Now, what an RFI is, it's a little bit different. We're asking them, we're telling them what our problem is and what we want to solve, and we're asking them to tell us how they would solve it, or if they had solved it before, how did they do that? So we're looking for vendors that have done that, particularly vendors that have worked with nonprofits such as SCORE. So what we're really saying is, this is what we want to build. Now, you tell us how you would build it. 3 vendors ended up answering the call, and those 3 vendors were submitted proposals, and those proposals were reviewed back in October 2017. And based on those 3 vendors and their reviews, 2 were chosen to provide a 1-day demonstration of their capabilities. And I was a part of that demonstration. It was in late November. We had a level playing field. Everyone got the same amount of time. Everyone got the same equipment. And after 2 days, it was very clear we had a winner. And that winner, and I'm not sure if Steve revealed this earlier, but it's Attain is the name of the company. Now, something interesting about Attain, this matters a little bit, but they are Virginia-based, so they're rather close by to the SCORE headquarters. But more importantly, they have solved problems similar to what we're facing as an organization. In that, and this is my number, we have about 400 times the volunteers that we do paid staff. So we're looking at organizations that are in a similar ratio, a similar situation. And it just so happens the Boston Athletic Association, the Boston Marathon, the people that put that on, had, from Attain had created a program for them, a process for them that is very excellent. And I invite you to go out to their website and take a look. Because think about this, the Boston Marathon, they have few paid staff. They've got hundreds, if not thousands of volunteers that want to help. And of course, they've got the runners, the clients. So they have to onboard not only the volunteers, but they have to onboard the clients as well. And so we were quite impressed with what Attain was able to do for the Boston Athletic Association. So as of today, actually it was the 28th of February, we kicked off with Attain. We're in what we call a 12-week discovery process. We're taking all of those specifications and all of the data that we gathered a couple of years ago. We've got that, but we're also going to do some more interviewing with the tech staff and senior management as well. Sort of a deep dive into what the capabilities of the system need to be. And so what we're doing is we're working on phase 1 of the project. And phase 1 is the first phase you will touch when it comes to fruition. And phase 1 is simply replacing the capabilities that we have today with core. replacing those capabilities. Not jumping ahead to the next level, but just replacing those capabilities with a modernized system. And anything we do in phase 2 will be above and beyond that. So we're looking at rolling that out April of 2019. Some of you in this room may be involved in that. What we're going to do with so-called alpha and beta testing is we're going to do it on a chapter-by-chapter basis. Where in the past we've taken key individuals and had them as part of a testing process, we're actually going to take an entire chapter or several chapters and have them do that. We feel we have a better chance of understanding our successes and our shortcomings if we do it that way. So chapter by chapter. And you can expect when we roll phase 1 out completely to everybody, again, it will be chapter by chapter. So how do we ensure success of this program? Well, we can certainly look back at what has gone wrong before, not only with us, but with other companies that have had software launch failures. And we know that lack of discovery, lack of planning, lack of communication, and lack of discipline when it comes to exceeding the original scope of the specification. Okay, everybody wants their little bells and whistles. We know those can cause problems and will tend to create an issue where you could actually fail the launch. So we know all of this. We certainly understand the lessons that were learned 7 or so years ago. So success will come by paying attention to those things I just mentioned, but also in doing a phased rollout where we are very methodical and incremental about how we roll the software out. I think, and you might agree, those are going to help ensure the success of anything that comes after core. Now, Michael's in the room, Steve's in the room as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this project or anything. Yes, sir.
What kind of internal team does school have addressing this? I mean, to me, the big issue is taking ownership internally rather than relying on consultants. I've never seen a consultancy be able to implement a system without a really strong internal team.
I could tell you, I'll give you my experience, and then and Steve and Michael want to chime in on this. The current vice president for technology that we have now, Joshua Kennedy, is head and shoulders above what we've had in the past, in my opinion, and knows how the systems operate under the covers, so to speak, and is very keen to understand that, and I think will be good at helping steer this ship.
I would excuse me, I would second that only by saying Joshua's been on board now for approaching 18 months maybe. Most of you probably never met him, or if you did, you met him in passing at a leadership conference. And there's a reason why we haven't put him out into the field, because he's got his head down doing a lot of stuff. To your question, our tech team is one of the larger teams within our office, but it's mostly help desk folks. So that's both good and bad. Do we have a lot of people on the back end going to do development? No, that's what we're going to hire out. Our team's going to direct them to do that, but the tech, the help desk folks will be there to do the training and support. And so a person that you'll, if you don't know, you'll likely know very quickly is Stephanie Holmes. She'll be someone that's really out there doing a lot of the training. Michael will be doing a lot of the training. We will probably hire someone specifically to coordinate a lot of the tech training as we do rollout. We did that when we did core. It worked relatively well. But we recognize the importance of this because so much of everything else that we want to do in the organization is built off of this working correctly.
I'll also tell you that Kenny Yancey has been a part of this project also. Going back even to the technology task force, he was involved in that. He knows what's at stake. He was around when all of this happened and took responsibility for it. Now, is he directing the technical aspects? Certainly not. But he is involved and knows how important this is, as he should. Yes, sir.
Just wondering, one of the things we've been doing in New York has been, we've actually been mining the core data. One of the goals here is to better understand the client so that we can do targeted marketing. And so one of the limitations in the current system is the limited amount of data that we're getting from the 641 in core. So one of the thoughts is to add a supplement to the 641 to be able to gather more data. An example here will be the client's business address in addition to their home address. And there may be more data about their demographics and so as I say, we can better understand the persona of the client. I'm just wondering how you're planning to satisfy, if you're planning to satisfy that, and what you're planning to do.
Well, again, with phase one, it most likely be just replacing what we have today, just in a new package and with a different database engine and different system. What you're describing is sort of post 641 information, isn't it? You're gathering it later. I don't know if that's if we have that as.
A lot of that, Sandy, will be in phase one because it's going to be the ability to have different email addresses for the same client. There's a lot of pieces in that. That's kind of native with the system that we're going to be using. It's going to be a true CRM and a true case management type system. So you'll have a lot more ability than you have in core today.
And I'll throw in one, and this is partially by, your problem's partially by design of how we're gathering information now too, which is our decision on initial client intake is on the mentoring request for all intents and purposes as easy as possible. So you guys know we require, I think, 5 fields. The 641 has a ton of demographic data on it, and in core it has it. None of us ever collect it. The clients don't readily give it to us because they don't want to take the time, and our volunteers, quite frankly, don't ask for it, nor do they input it if they have it. So I think there's multiple challenges to that. I think the more data we get, the better. I'm just that type of person, I guess. I think we need to start by thinking what are those most important things that we need to get, as opposed to trying to boil the ocean, which is what our friends in the federal government would like us to do and collect every piece of data in the history of the world. I think we need to figure out what those 10 or 15 really important ones are.
Very good. Yes.
Although core has been sped up over time, it's still painstaking and slow. Is that issue going to be addressed in phase one? Absolutely.
It has to be. That came up so often in our discussions, performance. And I will give Joshua credit for improving it to the point it is today. That was one of the first things he did when he came on board, is get into the system and help work on that and actually improve that performance.
My second question is about the report writer. The reports are very difficult to navigate at this point with her. And we have to go from page to page. You can't see an entire chapter's data. And
right.
Is the report writing going to be simplified and made more user-friendly?
Bert is up for discussion. I don't know if you've identified a replacement or nothing official yet. No.
It will be replaced. The underlying databases will be far better. The way that, in order to be able to get, part of the idea behind this is to have a whole better database that you can cut and slice, and you can't do it with BERT. So the reality of it is whether it's the native report app that comes out of Salesforce, quite frankly, I think it might be better than BERT. Again, BERT is great if all you want to do is see what we think you want to see. If you want to see something else, it's a pain. So yeah, it will get better. We just don't know what it is yet.
Okay, Lenny, you have your hand.
Yeah, is there going to be a replacement for the volunteer center in addition to core, or are they going to be meshed in the same program, or are they going to be? What do you want to do with it?
There would be a new user interface. There would be a new user interface. Yes.
Okay, after this Salesforce system.
Yeah.
So one thing that we are doing on the volunteer center, just so everyone knows, you will see an updated, refreshed volunteer center even before we roll out Salesforce. It's still going to be built off of the same system, but it's going to look new and it's going to be searchable for the first time ever. So it will be better. It will not be good. It will be better. So keep that in mind. One thing though that Salesforce will do, because we were actually going to build a whole new standalone volunteer center, but when we looked at Salesforce, there's so many community apps that can pop right into there and actually use all of the data we have all in one spot. It made sense to link.
So on the other hand, Carrie.
For the most part, we're gonna leave Salesforce package intact. We're not trying to modify a lot with Salesforce to fit in.
Natively, it gives you a lot of capabilities to start with.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and as a, not only as a time saver, but a cost saver as well, it makes most sense to use as much of the capability that you're buying with your license.
Right?
Yes.
There are a number of chapters have created software on their own applications that they're on their own to make up for deficits that they see in core. And while I think all of us would be happy to give that up, we don't want to give up the functionality. And so, can you talk a little bit? I know I've been a pest about this, but I'd like you to talk just a little bit about the plans to, or what has been looked at in terms of other functionality that various chapters have added.
Okay, so I would have to assume, and it's probably not a good thing to do, but that those capabilities were actually part of our discovery, our early discovery, and that chapters had done certain things, done certain add-ons, and we should know about that. If we don't, we need to know what's going on out there so that we can design whatever, if it's phase 1 or phase 2, around those capabilities. And unless they're so far out there, so far on the fringe, that very few chapters are going to use them, if you get my drift there.
Yeah.
So it really has to be universally usable and of benefit to the whole community for us to consider it. In the back.
Brian, is there a place that we can go as the project proceeds, where you might put certain documents that we could look at to keep us all up to speed on where you're going?
That's a good idea. We could have a Dropbox or some even a page in the website in the volunteer center. That's a good idea.
There will be a new task force built, probably 15 people across the country, that will be doing a lot of the additional, a lot of the deep dive stuff that Brian's been involved with for a really long time as well. So it's not like we think we're done and we know everything, and it's going to be very involved, and everyone's going to have full transparency as to what we're doing. I will give one quick note that Joshua asked me if we should bring Attain or Salesforce people to leadership conference. I told him hell no. And the reason is I don't think by July 30th that we're going to have anything truly that's going to resemble a finished product. And the last thing that I want you all to do is come look at something that's half-baked, think it sucks, and then go back and tell your chapter, oh, here we go. So keep that in mind, that just because you don't see something in 90 days doesn't mean something isn't being done either.
We also said that chapters who can help with the specifications and in this next phase could actually be chapters that are part of the beta test as well. So if Mark Lowenstein is one of the 15 or 18 people, and he has input to the design, he'll actually be able to take it back to the chapter and be part of that test, that rollout. And I think that's really important, that we get a user involved who's going to take ownership and understand the application of the chapter.
Getting back to Mike's comment too, just, and I mentioned this and I'll just restate it again because I don't think it can be restated enough. The last thing that I want any of you or any of your people to do is to become a Salesforce developer for something that your chapter thinks it needs and for SCORE. One of the reasons we chose Salesforce is because everybody has already developed every single app that they could ever want to go on Salesforce because it's been around for so long. So whether it's a calendaring system or a scheduling system or some internal communications or texting or whatever else that you guys can come up with, it's already built. Whether it's there on day 1 or day 90 will be a different question. But I want to make sure that we talk about what the functionality is, and we change the conversation probably to what we have had, which is you all use some level of calendaring system. It's just not the same calendaring system. So that's going to be the harder conversation, is going to Orange County and saying, your calendaring system's great, but we're not going to support your calendaring system anymore. we're gonna support the calendaring system as we go forward, and that will require some change management across chapters. I'm gonna ask you guys to be very flexible and very open-minded on this, because, again, we're not reinventing wheels here, we're trying to make wheels that already run. Does that make sense?
And we, our business today is operating with core. It's a stable platform. It has its problems, we all know that. But we're not up against we're not under the gun necessarily to absolutely have to make this change in 360 days, okay? So we have time to be methodical and we have time to get it right. Yes.